yeah, and say, look, um, you should take this bit out. But Niall said to me that the judge has got the paperwork.
Okay.
It's entirely his decision when he will release it, but he thinks he will release it in a week or so. Now, that's really fascinating information because once it's released and we see what Harry said, we will know if he told the truth
Yeah.
or not.
Oh my goodness. That will be incredible.
Nice.
The thing is, I just don't expect it to happen while Biden remains president. I think if Trump becomes president, it could be a different story. But my goodness, I hope we get that information, Angela, because I can't believe for a single second that Harry told the truth on that documentation.
What do you mean by that?
Because how would he have been allowed in if he was open about the fact that he had used drugs? The American Immigration Service is very strict on this type of thing. So, oh goodness, I really hope Niall Gunner and the Heritage Foundation win this one.
Yeah, right.
Yes, I think there's a slight difference though, because I think once he got into writing it, he was pouring out all sorts of horrible things. It was ridiculous about the number of soldiers he'd killed.
What?
In Afghanistan. That was also foolish and made him more liable to someone to come along and, make life
Well,
very
he put his
difficult.
own security at risk, didn't he?
Yes,
That's
exactly.
the irony.
So I think that once he got into it, he lost all understanding of being really careful. But it's very foolish. It's a very foolish
Exactly.
thing.
Yet
I
again,
hope the thing is, if
Angela,
he,
his actions have consequences. He's not a little child anymore. He's a grown adult. Fact.
he said something about, well, it was just for making more people want to read it. That's a nonsense.
So what, he's now going to say he was lying in his own book, his own
He
autobiography?
sort of hinted at that. He has hinted at that, but that's absolutely.
Well, that might be the defense. I guess that might have to be his legal defense, because if you think about it, he could say, oh, no, don't worry, I didn't lie on my form, I lied in my book.
That doesn't make sense.
And we know he lied in his book anyway, so but it will be hilarious if that's the path he has to go down.
That would be very muddly, yes.
Angela, what about this announcement that they are going to be touring, the Sussexes are going to be touring Colombia, one of the most dangerous countries in the world, coming just a week after Harry said he's too scared to even allow Meghan to come to the UK?
Yes, isn't it nonsense? I mean, this is another absolute perfect example of their hypocrisy.
Damn!
He won't let Meghan come to the UK, although she might not want to anyway, but he's certainly not going to bring the children. But this is known as one of the world's most dangerous countries. The Bureau of Consular Affairs says it's full of violent crime, homicide, assault, armed robbery, organized criminal activities such as extortion, robbery, and kidnapping.
What?
So there we are. They were invited by the vice president, Francia Marquez, and during the trip, they will visit Bogota, Cartagena, and Cali. Cali is apparently has the reputation for being one of the most dangerous cities in Colombia. So, I think they wanted to repeat their trip to Nigeria and see how they got on there, because that really annoyed the royal family, upset them, because they were involved with people who were wanted for burglary and things like that in America. And Meghan got a telling off from the First Lady for keeping them a whole load of intellectual women waiting for her for an hour, which is extraordinary rude. Royals don't do that. And also that she dressed inappropriately. She didn't want people following American people. Afterwards, she said she didn't really mean Meghan, but I think that was being polite.
Oh, we knew what she meant. We knew what she meant.
Come on now, dog.
Yeah, I imagine Harry and Meghan's team had probably kicked off and said, "What was this about?" No, I think it's the height of hypocrisy. Look, it's August, which means a great royal tradition is continuing.
Yeah, right.
The King and Queen will be at Balmoral, and we didn't actually know, Angela, if that would continue, did we? Because it's not traditionally where Charles is in Scotland. He has his own home there, but it's nice that this tradition is going, and we learn, and I think this is positive news, isn't it, that Catherine will also be there recuperating from her cancer treatment. So it's nice, isn't it, that Charles and Catherine can both be together and try and get some sun and some proper recovery time, because especially Charles needs it. He's had such a relentless schedule given what he's battling health-wise, Angela.
Yes. I think it's wonderful to hear this, because it'll be the first time that Princess Catherine has actually gone any long journey.
Are you sure about that?
Because it is a bit of a long journey to get to Scotland. And what also it seems to me is that she feels so comfortable with the King and Queen. She wouldn't go if she was going to feel and be difficult. Why? Because she needs to look after herself. And she felt she would be so comfortable there that she was satisfied to go. And she would know that certainly King Charles, and of course Camilla, would understand that she had to be careful, not use too much energy. And some days she would feel okay and some days she wouldn't. I think it's absolutely marvelous, because she knew that the children likes them. And King Charles absolutely adores those three children. They are delightful.
Nice.
And I think it will be a big step in her getting better, because she will be doing something that they've done before, that is family. And they're sort of like a second family. And I think that it will be.
Yeah, and you mentioned the fact that she wants to crush the royal family, and I have no doubt about that. That's completely right. But it must be increasingly crushing for Harry and Meghan to realise quite how much their plan has spectacularly failed.
What?
I mean, there was a time when they were doing huge damage to the royal family, Angela, with their revelations, but that really seems to be over now. And I don't know what more they can do, what more they can say. I know Meghan has made a few threats about her book and revealing the whole truth and that, but it feels like they had the opportunity. They tried to do it with the Oprah Winfrey interview, and actually now they're a busted flush. It's a case of diminishing returns. There just wasn't much hype or much interest in this interview and what they had to say.
Come on now, dog.
Well, I think that's, I don't think Meghan would ever think that, because I think that she's just forever going to the top and she thinks she will make it. She's very, very determined, and everything that she can do, like even saying, I'm only on the first layer of talking about how I wanted to kill myself. These are threats and they can really do harm. And I think Harry is also doing harm in a different way.
Okay, I'm listening. You have my attention.
In that he talked to that magazine, what's it called now? People.
Yes.
And he said in there, or a friend or somebody else said for him, that his father won't speak to him, and also he won't help him. And it was put in a way that if I didn't know that was complete nonsense, he would have got away with it. One of the reasons why the King doesn't answer his phone calls is that you can't reach him directly. He doesn't have his own phone, and it goes through aides before you can speak to him.
Fact.
And a time is decided in advance because of, he's very busy. But he has to look after himself. And I know that Harry will go on and demand things. He's not now asking nicely in a kind way, but, he demands from him, and he wants still apologies for Meghan's treatment, whatever that was, I don't know. But when he demands for it, he wants his father. He said his father is able to get him back the top rate of protection, and that's not true.
No,
The
he's
king can't
not.
do that. It's not.
It's
This
like
is the
does Harry not understand how it works?
How? Hold on, bro. How?
Because that would be Charles directly overruling a government decision, which is not something that the monarchy can do. Do you think, Angela, actually what Harry really wants is Charles to just pay for it himself out of his own pocket?
Good question.
No, I think this is to show that Charles is a nasty man. I think that's what it is.
But he just can't do it.
I think he knows very well, because he knows that it comes out of the taxpayers' money.
Yeah.
And actually, there's some very, very good protectioners that are one step down from the one he wants. And that's because they don't have guns.
And?
Yes.
And they know absolutely what's going on behind the curtains. But there's loads of them, loads of protection officers who are very good. Princess Anne, Beatrice, usually, they never have these top people. It's only the ones who work very, very hard. The four, the king, the queen, and the heirs to the throne. They're the ones who work hard, and they get this privilege of having people looking after them 24/7.
Nice.
But if you're not in that foursome, you can get lots of help. And he doesn't want to do that. He's determined. He's going to the court for the third time to try and get it.
I know.
And it's costing him a fortune. But it's not because he doesn't understand it. I think that this way, the way it's put in the magazine is that, gosh, isn't Charles mean? He's got so much money, isn't he mean? But it's not that. It's a principle that he can't do.
He can't do it. And the thing is, Angela, by the way, outside of the royal family, if Elon Musk or George Clooney or Mark Zuckerberg or Oprah Winfrey, you know, the world's most famous and rich people, if they come to the UK, they don't get this government-funded security either. They have to fund it themselves. Fact. So Harry is no different to any other very high-profile person that makes a huge amount of money and is able to pay for private security. So this has just become a ludicrous campaign.
What do you mean by that?
I did actually want to ask you about this People magazine piece, though, Angela, because it was so fascinating to me on loads of levels. Given People magazine, we know it is the place that they use when they are wanting to put their propaganda out into the world. You remember that it's where Meghan Markle's friends first revealed the information about the letter to Thomas Markle and the details of the letter to Thomas Markle, her father, even though eventually she sued the Mail on Sunday.
What?
For putting more information about the letter into the public domain, even though she had actually put it out first to People magazine. But the point that I make it, Angela, is that this is one of their mouthpieces. If you read something in People magazine, you know usually that it has come directly from Harry and Meghan.
Well, good evening from London. Welcome to Piers Morgan Uncensored. Harry and Meghan's claims about supposed racists in the royal family have left a predictable and poisonous legacy for the last few years. We live in an age where grievances are given the benefit of the doubt, where the establishment is toxic by default, where my truth apparently means more than the truth. They knew the power their words would hold, and many people across the world took their words at face value.
Are you serious?
Now, almost 3 years on, Britain is still dealing with the fallout from this.
And also concerns and conversations about how dark his skin might be when he's born.
Okay.
What? About how dark your baby is going to be?
Potentially, and what that would mean or look like.
Hold up.
There's
Stop
several
right now.
there's several conversations.
There's a
about
conversation with you?
with Harry.
So that was a lie.
About how dark your baby is going to be?
Potentially, and what that would mean or look like.
Ooh. And you're not going to tell me who had the conversation?
Very good question.
I think that would be very damaging to them.
Okay.
Compartmentalized
Because they were
conversations.
concerned that if he were too brown, that would be a problem. Are you saying that?
You better answer the fucking question.
I wasn't able to follow up with why, but if that's the assumption you're making, I think that feels like a pretty safe one.
You may recall that I lost my previous job for responding to these claims by saying I didn't believe a word of it. Well, Harry and Meghan have never provided any evidence for that highly incendiary claim. It's not like they haven't had the chance to. After all, they pumped out 6 hours of self-indulgent bilge on Netflix, trashing Britain and the press for its racism. They didn't mention what they said on Oprah. Harry wrote 150,000 words of family-bashing poison in his memoir Spare and toured the TV studios to promote it. They didn't mention what they'd said to Oprah Winfrey. Fact. Meghan had a 12-part podcast on Spotify. I didn't mention it either. It was like it never happened, like it disappeared. Clearly, neither of them gave a damn about royal protocol or family privacy. In fact, they built a whole industry around violating their own privacy and that of their relatives. Instead of backing up those claims about racism on their relentless publicity tour, Harry did a sort of strange U-turn, didn't he, a few months ago? Tried to pretend they'd never said them.
Are you serious?
It was us. It was the media.
In the Oprah interview, you accuse members of your family of racism. You don't even... Well,
the British press said that.
Right.
Stop it. Did Meghan ever mention that they're racist?
She said there were troubling comments about
there was concern about his skin colour.
Right. Wouldn't you describe that as essentially racist?
I wouldn't, not having lived within that family.
Took him 2 years to do that U-turn. 2 years of the royal family are a bunch of racists flying around the world. I was in America through a lot of that period, and they all believed it because it had appeared on Oprah. Then he says, I never meant to say anything about racism. What are you all talking about? It's the beastly media. Well, now Harry and Meghan's lick-spittle client journalist Omid Scobie, the man who lied about his age, said he was 33 when in fact he was 38, a bit older now, said he never used private jets and then got reminded of an Instagram picture of him the week before he denied that this week, showing him on a private jet. The man who said that I have regular phone calls with Queen Camilla.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Regular phone calls. Never had one phone call with Queen Camilla in my entire life. I'd like to, but she doesn't call. Well, Scobie is back with a spiteful, lie-filled new book, Fact, that's poured fuel on the flames. He says that Meghan wrote private letters to King Charles, naming 2 royals who she accuses of taking part in those supposedly troubling conversations about Archie's skin colour.
Stop it.
Scobie initially said he knew the names but couldn't legally report them. But of course, he could have done outside of the UK. He could have done it in America if he wanted to, where the book is published. He could have done it anywhere. But he said he never names names.
That doesn't make sense.
Which is another of his lies. And yet overnight they were sensationally revealed, suddenly, out of nowhere, in the Dutch version of Scobie's book. Journalists had been sent copies and the book was briefly on sale in bookstores. What? Before being suddenly withdrawn in a dash by the publishers. Scobie initially said it was a translation error, which didn't really make any sense because how do you mistranslate names? They're either there or they're not. The publisher now says it wasn't translation, it was simply an error. But how did that error happen?
Very good question.
How is there an entire different version appearing in a Dutch edition of this book? The consequence of that error is that millions of people online around the world now know the royals are again being implicated in what I think is a completely baseless claim of inferred racism. There is, again, massive speculation about who the people are who were supposedly making comments about Archie's skin colour, which is incredibly unfair to all the royal family. They've all been tarred with this brush now for years. Well, I'm going to end all this nonsense because, frankly, if a book is on the streets in Holland, available to Dutch people, containing names that Omid Scobie, the lick-spittle scribe for the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, the man who you may remember, denied they had any involvement in the last book. And so did Meghan. Do you remember? Oh, nothing to do with it.
So that was a lie.
But then in court, many months after the book was published, under oath, she had to admit she had emailed her aides briefing notes for when they met Scobie. So she was one of his primary sources on that first book. Now again, we're being told she had nothing to do with this. And maybe she didn't. And maybe we should be believing Omid Scobie when he says he did not ever write these names down in any draft of his book.
Are you serious?
It just somehow popped up in the Dutch version of the book. How? I've written 10 books, I think it is now. I've never had a version of my book pop up in a foreign edition. Fact. That contained unbelievably damning allegations about two of the most famous people in the world, and I had nothing to do with it and didn't know how it got there, and nor did anybody else. How does it get there?
That doesn't make sense.
Omid, surely you as the author, I mean, you must be furious, right? You must be demanding. Heads roll. And you want names, don't you, ironically? Omid, about who did this to you? Who besmirched your reputation as an author? I would, Omid. I'd want to know right now. Especially if I was trying to convince the world that I had nothing to do with it myself. And I'd never, ever put the...